I want you to imagine, just for a moment, stepping into a version of yourself so magnetic, so refined, and so utterly untouchable that the moment a man realizes what he's lost, he is left with nothing but regret, lingering desire, and a memory of a woman he could never truly contain. And I don't mean this in some airy, superficial way. It's not about makeup or the perfect outfit. It's about energy, presence, and an internal authority that cannot be replicated. 30 days. That's all it took for me to completely reset not my face, not my body, not even my style, but my very essence. The way I carried myself, the rhythm of my voice, the subtle cadence of my gestures, and the quiet confidence that radiates from someone who knows her worth and refuses to compromise it. I remember the first morning I truly saw it, waking up with a calm centeredness, a sparkle in my eyes, skin that seemed to glow from within, and a posture so regal it demanded recognition without a single word. It wasn't vanity, it was alignment. I started tracking my sleep, regulating my hormones, feeding my body precisely what it needed, moving in ways that strengthened not only muscle, but magnetic presence, meditating to recalibrate the mind that had been carrying old anxieties. And suddenly, everything shifted. Men who had previously ignored texts, who had subtly disrespected boundaries, who had taken my attention for granted, were suddenly noticing my absence, longing subtly, unsure of how to regain ground they had carelessly abandoned. Women, too, were mirroring my softening, admiring, learning unconsciously, because energy is contagious, and a woman who owns her sovereignty inspires reflection, emulation, and sometimes envy. This is the psychological trick that most people miss. Presence, confidence, and internal alignment communicate a high-value life before a single syllable is spoken. And once you master this, you no longer compete, you dominate your space. That first brunch after my 30-day transformation was a revelation. I walked in, and even the air seemed to pause for recognition. I felt the almost imperceptible shifts in micro-expressions, the tilt of heads, the softened postures, the way conversations subtly bent toward me. And that, my sisters, is not coincidence, it's physics of human behavior. It's evolutionary psychology. It's luxury energy translated into every glance, every step, every smile. When you tune yourself, you become unignorable. That's your first lesson. This isn't about chasing attention. It's about embodying it. So men will chase you, women will mirror you, and the world will recalibrate around the woman you were always capable of being. And as you feel that sinking in, I want you to subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment your biggest takeaway, because awareness alone is the first step toward mastering your energy. The second week was when the subtle alchemy really began. I noticed men who had long been indifferent, suddenly scanning rooms, their gazes lingering just slightly too long, hesitant as though they were weighing their past mistakes against the undeniable reality of my presence. Women who had seemed untouchable now sought my guidance, my tone, my laughter, my aura. Because presence is contagious and confidence cannot be faked, it must be lived, breathed, and meticulously curated from the inside out. I began walking into spaces not to be seen, but to be felt. And here's the philosophical nugget that changed everything for me. Aristotle said that excellence is a habit, and I realized that each small choice, how I fed myself, how I moved, how I held my head high, how I spoke, even how I breathed, was a tiny act of excellence, building a persona so magnetic that men who had lost me could feel it on a visceral, unconscious level. It's why some of them would text later, vague and hesitant, trying to rekindle interest, and I would smile softly, because I knew my power did not need to be pleaded for. The real power lies in presence, in subtlety, in the almost invisible confidence that tells the world, without words, that you are unshakable. I remember the first date I went on after the transformation, just coffee. Nothing elaborate, and the man across from me mirrored my posture, my gestures, my speech tempo, completely unconsciously. This is the hidden psychological hack of feminine dominance. When your energy is aligned, others synchronize with it, and they do not even know it's happening. Luxury is not a brand or a label, it's the physics of human perception. The way a poised, centered, hormonally balanced, and emotionally intelligent woman effortlessly attracts value. And as I realized this, I understood the greatest secret most women never admit. You cannot make someone value you by begging, pleading, or negotiating. You can only become the version of yourself so magnetic that their recognition becomes inevitable. That's why, in week 2, I added intentional rituals of self-reinforcement, journaling power statements, curating spaces that reflected my worth, visualizing the life I desired, and moving daily as though every room I entered was already mine. And it worked. People noticed. Opportunities came. Attention arrived unbidden. And you can feel this too, so comment your takeaway. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and start noticing the subtle shifts in energy that signal the world bending toward your presence. Because once you embody this, there is no going back. By week 4, I had not only reclaimed my energy, but transformed it into a living aura that demanded recognition, inspired desire, and created subtle but undeniable regret in those who had once taken me for granted. I walked into a casual dinner with friends and noticed the way conversations stilled slightly when I entered. How a man I barely knew lingered near the edge of the room. Hesitant, curious, aware that he was in the presence of someone rare. Women observed, studied, and softened in ways that created space rather than competition. Because energy is language, and I spoke fluently, I realized that the 30-day transformation was not about minute, was about sovereignty, self-possession, and mastery of my own body, mind, and presence. And yet, the side effect was clear. Men could not help but notice, to the point where even casual interactions were charged with subconscious tension, admiration, and longing. Philosophically, it's fascinating. Plato wrote that beauty is harmony, not superficiality. And in those 30 days, I had aligned my internal and external harmony in a way that was undeniable. I moved through the world differently, breathing differently, engaging differently, commanding subtly yet unmistakably. And that is the ultimate lesson. My sisters, you do not need to chase anyone, beg for attention, or compromise your value. You must embody it fully, daily, with deliberate intention, until it radiates so naturally that the universe mirrors it back in every interaction. I remember thinking as I stood in a crowded room, observing the subtle micro-expressions, the lingering gazes, the hesitant movements of those who had underestimated me, that this is power disguised as grace and it is the highest form of feminine sovereignty. So I want you to leave this with one thought. You are the variable that transforms every space you enter, every relationship you hold, and every interaction you influence. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment your biggest takeaway. Because once you start embodying this energy, once you allow yourself to align inside, men will notice, women will admire, and the only regret anyone will feel is losing the woman you were always meant to be. This is not fantasy. This is physics, psychology, and philosophy rolled into one irresistible, unshakable, luxurious presence. You are her, and once you see her in yourself, there is no turning back. And here's the truth that nobody tells you. Transformation isn't just a 30-day ritual, it's a mindset upgrade. A complete recalibration of how you interact with the world, how you expect to be treated, and how you move when no one is watching. The moment I stopped compromising, the moment I refused to lower my standards or dim my light to accommodate anyone else's comfort, that's when the subtle alchemy began. Men who had once been nonchalant or distant suddenly found themselves leaning in, hesitant, unsure of how to navigate a woman who radiated value without trying. And women, too, couldn't help but reflect my energy, admiring, sometimes intimidated, always noticing. The beauty of this is in its quiet dominance. There is no yelling, no desperate proving, no chasing, just presence, just poise, Just an internal alignment so precise that the world, almost unconsciously, bends itself around you. I started noticing micro signals everywhere. A man lingering near the edge of a room just to observe me. Subtle attempts at connection from people who once ignored me. Compliments offered with a reverence that felt almost ceremonial. I realized then that attraction, desire, and respect aren't things you chastity, are things you emanate. Every step I took became a lesson in gravitational pull. Every gesture a demonstration of value. Every glance a quiet command. And it's intoxicating. Not because of vanity, but because it's truth. When your energy is aligned, your presence alone speaks volumes, and the universe conspires to mirror your internal excellence. I want you to imagine that sensation: soft, undeniable awareness that people notice you in a way they can't articulate. That men wish they had handled things differently. That women unconsciously respect and mirror your poise. That, my sisters, is the subtle, seductive power of becoming the woman every man regrets losing. And it doesn't come from perfection, it comes from deliberate, unapologetic cultivation of your energy, your hormones, your mindset, and your presence. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment your biggest takeaway. Because once you feel this energy, once you embody it fully, you will never again underestimate the power you hold when you choose to value yourself above all else. This is luxury. This is dominance. This is feminine power at its most refined. And it's waiting for you to claim it fully.